If you like people with honest opinions, then this is for you. This is the Mouth That Roared podcast exclusively on Podbean.com. Also, please remember to follow me on Instagram at the Mouth That Roared podcast. And now, without further ado, here is the host of the Mouth That Roared, me, Chris Sheehan. Hey everybody, and welcome to today's edition of the Mouth That Roared podcast, exclusively on Podbean.com. I am your host, Chris Sheehan, and before I begin today's show, I must say that I wasn't going to mention what it is that I'm about to mention. However, I must mention it because it was purely entertaining and fascinating. Now, I happen to be speaking of the Trump press conference that took place last week on November 7th. I must say one thing: I admire President Trump, and I admire his ability to tell it like it is. What I mean by that is he's very ballsy. Now, he's not afraid to stand up to douchebags like Jim Acosta and his clusterfuck news network, better known as CNN. And I love how all of the mainstream media, while I'm on the subject, by the way, of CNN, and, I love how all of the mainstream media news organizations have just completely edited the whole exchange, the whole tape of what actually went down between the two of them. They make it look as if Jim Acosta was actually, the victim, which doesn't surprise me. I mean, I sort of expected that to happen, but not so much the way that they did it, where, it's pretty much, it takes the best lines from Trump, and it just makes it sound like he was being ignorant in a sense, Now, if anybody was ignorant, it was Acosta, because, when people like him, they have no place being, first of all, let me say this, they have no business being journalists, let alone any business reporting anything, they should not be involved with anything like this. Now, I really believe that President Trump said, what he said was spot on, and I could sum it up for you in pretty much 2 words, honestly, and that is fake news. That's exactly what he said, pretty much. I mean, you didn't need all this political talk and all that bullshit. He just said fake news, and that was it. What President Trump said was spot on, and if people would watch the full tape for themselves, the world wouldn't be so goddamn stupid. Now, go watch it if you haven't done so. And, I really think people need to see the whole thing in its entirety. I happen to watch it live as it happened on NBC, I believe it was. And I enjoyed the it was funny to me. I was laughing hysterically at certain parts. I mean, it was very entertaining and fascinating to watch. Now, I really believe that this whole thing is just really disgraceful. I mean, to take something like this and make it into a whole big thing when, in actuality, it was CNN that was making it the whole big thing, And yet they turn around and they play the victims. But that's okay. I see what they're doing, Not that we could stop them. I mean, let's face it. But whatever. I mean, it is what it is. And since we're on the topic of politics, another thing happened where Attorney General Jeff Sessions decided to resign. So that's a good move right there. I mean, he was a dumbass from the beginning anyway. Now, I'm tired of talking about politics. I gotta be honest with you people. Jim Acosta, by the way, I should mention this before I stop talking about it. He was revoked of his White House press, whatever you call it, whatever it takes to get him in the door of the White House. That's what he was revoked of. So thankfully, there will be no fake news, at least being reported in the White House. It'll only just be reported on CNN in the studio. Now, moving on, because I'm tired of talking about this. I really want to talk about streaming services. Now, I am a big fan of streaming services, but I am not a big fan of Netflix, with the exception of 2 shows that I happen to love, and that is Fuller House, and I used to love House of Cards. Up until the 3rd season of House of Cards, then it really became a shit show. I stopped watching it. I don't really even watch it anymore, but Fuller House I've been watching since day one, and I've enjoyed it, Even though Netflix is a lot more money, you can't afford all of these streaming services, what I am getting at. So what I did was, I sign up for the free month every couple of months to watch the new episodes of Fuller House when it gets uploaded. And then I end up going to Hulu, which I actually subscribe to. I pay for Hulu and I get the free month with Netflix. You know, many people do this. I mean, it's nothing new. But I enjoy this a lot more because it gives you more. Hulu, especially, in my opinion, gives you more of a variety of classic TV shows. You know, that's what I like. I'm not really into newer stuff, although the advantage of Netflix, I would say, is their original programming, whereas Hulu's original programming isn't all that good. Now, I think, honestly, that, you know, many of these streaming services are very affordable in a sense. You know, you don't have to just stick to Hulu or Netflix. I mean, there's like 50 other ones out there that you could either pay for, or a lot of them have good entertainment that are free. For example, Sony Crackle, FilmRise, and the most recent one that I subscribe to is Pluto TV. Now, Pluto TV, you know, Pluto as in like the planet that doesn't exist. Pluto TV is kind of like in a way, it's like a cable. It's free cable in a sense. I mean, you get all these channels and all that you can watch, and it's very, you know, you get a few commercials tossed in there, and then, you know, but for the most part, I mean, it's watchable. You know, they don't play like 500 commercials every 10 minutes or whatever. I mean, it's, you know, they keep it short. It's very sweet and to the point, and, you know, that's what you want in a streaming service. I mean, you don't want to be sitting there all day watching advertisements. And I really like it. You know, I like Pluto TV. I like Sony Crackle. Sony Crackle has all movies and, you know, sitcoms and all that from the Sony library, hence the name Sony Crackle. And you know what? Even Hulu, too. I gotta give credit to Hulu. I mean, even though they have advertisements where you're sitting there for like 90 seconds or even like 110 seconds, you know, it's they still have the advantage, in my opinion, because of their deep library of shows. That's exactly what I look for in a streaming service. And you know, if I could recommend something to all of you, I would say go out and get Hulu. It's only $7.99 a month, although for me, it cost me $5.99 because I don't know why, they had a discount running at the time, and I happened to get $2 off the price, and it's a lot cheaper than Netflix. You know, Netflix happens to be, I think, $14.99, so it's gotten a lot more expensive for subpar entertainment over the years. So with that all being said, I would recommend that you watch Hulu, because it's a lot cheaper. I would even recommend that you go and watch things like Pluto TV, or you go and look at Sony Crackle or FilmRise or any of these other apps that you could get. If you have Amazon Prime, you could watch shows on there. I am not fortunate enough to have Amazon Prime. I don't really want to pay all that money for that. So with that being said, I thank you all for joining me, and goodbye, everybody.